There we go. All right. What up, dudes? So yeah, confidence. So I've been wanting to do something on confidence for a while. I have done a lot of other things on confidence. I know when I was doing segments like pitching talk segments when I was back in Omaha, I was trying to hit confidence a lot. I try to hit a lot of like the mental aspects, as you guys know, quite a bit. I wanna start this whole entire thing off by saying, like, when it comes to confidence and when it comes to like self-conviction, especially within the game of baseball, it doesn't matter if you're a hitter or you're a pitcher, like, I don't have the right answer, or the quote unquote right answer, because I really don't think there is a right answer. Now, I do believe that there are some wrong answers as far as how to approach confidence and how to really go about it. I think it's interesting, right? Because I will say that any athlete that plays, at a pretty decently high level, I would even say like high school baseball, high school basketball, anything. It's funny how it works, because I think deep down, we as athletes, we know how not to approach the whole confidence thing. Like, I think we know exactly what not to do, and yet we still sometimes do it in terms of like thought processes and mindsets. We know kind of what thoughts to avoid. We know what conversations to avoid getting into, and yet whether we like it or not, somehow it comes out. And all I really want to do today is, again, just talk from like personal experience with my confidence, some of the things that has helped me along the way, along this crazy journey that is my professional baseball career. And I'll talk about, some stories. I'll include some like super real moments of my career, and just, again, like, honestly, my podcast has become really like therapeutic for me too, because it helps me like get these thoughts out, and the whole foundation of my presence online is to really just be as authentic as I can. And I wouldn't be authentic if all I talked about was like the good things that come about in my career or in the game of baseball, right? Like, we know that in order to play a game built around failure, there's going to be some times where it's like, holy smokes, this is terrible, right? Like, it's not fun. So, I've actually been getting a lot of like emails and a lot of questions on Instagram recently about, what is the answer to how I approach not feeling confident? And to echo my thoughts from earlier, there is no answer. Like, there is no formula that you do. There is no like sets, reps of a drill that you do that all of a sudden just provokes confidence in you. I think that's a piece that makes this game so beautiful, is the fact that how important confidence and how important conviction and having a strong mindset play in the game of baseball. Because, if you're around this game, if you like this game, if you've been playing it for a while, you see firsthand there's dudes out there that may not have the physical talent that some other people have, but they just got their mindset and their confidence on lockdown, and they're able to compete and they're able to succeed day in and day out, even though they may not be the most physically talented player on the field. It just shows like that's how much confidence plays a role in this game. Now, hopefully you have listened to some of my podcasts or have heard me talk before, because I want to apologize. I am very like ADD. I'm going to go up and down. Like, I'm going to just hammer like a topic and then flip gears and all of a sudden and try to come back. So I want to apologize for those listening that haven't listened to me yet. But here's the thing that I have noticed with myself and confidence and the mental game of baseball. Okay. This is what I've noticed, is the fact that like we understand the importance and the magnitude of how pivotal like confidence and having a good amount of confidence is, right? Like, it goes exactly with what I just said about having a guy on the field that is literally a spitting image of the guy that's not as physically talented as everyone, but he is shoving or he is raking, right? Like I just watched a Kyle Hendricks outing last night in which he went 8 innings against the Cards, but it was like you look at his stuff, and I know a lot of people will say he doesn't have good stuff, but that's a totally misrepresentation of who he is. He's actually got nasty stuff, but he just doesn't throw as hard as a lot of people, right? So how does he get people out? Well, we can talk about that all the live long day. But again, going back to what I noticed with myself is I've understood how important it is to have confidence. So therefore I put this whole like mental approach and this confidence thing on a huge pedestal. So then I almost promote more internal pressure for myself to obtain confidence, right? So it's this whole like battle within of trying harder from a mental standpoint to obtain confidence, when in reality, all that's happening in that approach for me is more pressure that's building up to obtain something that should come somewhat naturally. Hopefully that kind of thing that I just said made a little bit of sense, but it's hard to try to put these things into words sometimes. So if I'm trying to accomplish a task in the game of baseball, me being a pitcher, I am trying to get hitters out, and I'm trying to look good doing it, right? And I'm trying to win baseball games. That is a task in and of itself that requires this, I guess it doesn't require, that's the wrong wordage, but it also, it promotes somewhat of a pressure inside you towards obtaining success, right? You work hard towards obtaining success. We have this thing as human beings that is this fear towards what might happen if we don't obtain success, right? So then that also kind of plays hand in hand with the confidence and so on and so forth. So I think the game of baseball, especially the game of baseball built around failure, brings about enough internal and external pressure that if we then try to have another layer of something we're trying and working towards obtaining, then that it's suffocating. Now, again, I'm not speaking in absolutes. I'm trying to just speak towards me and my personal experience with all of this. Now, this could be completely different for you, right? We could have completely different paths. We can have completely different thought process. Like we could be totally different people. I just want to speak to my experience and, talking to people along the way. Now, I will say that for me, and this echoes so many different thoughts and so many different podcasts that I've done, but for me, the most important thing to establish is gratitude and joy towards the game of baseball, because I think that sets me up to have to be put into a different mindset that will then help me obtain all of the things that I'm trying and working towards obtaining. Meaning, as soon as I look at the game of baseball as like a have to, right? Like I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do X, Y, and Z, then that becomes draining from a mental and a physical standpoint. But the second that I can flip the script and I can go, man, I get to play the game of baseball, I get to throw a baseball, then that sets me up to then obtain success, and as a byproduct, obtain a level of confidence and conviction. Okay. And I know I probably sound like a broken record with this, because I know it's super easy to say all of this and completely different to put into action. I was just talking to a kid today about this, and I wanted to just encourage him with a simple thought about, why did you start playing the game of baseball, right? Look back at like Little League and look back at when we started doing this whole thing. The reason that we started it, or let's say the reason that we continued to play it, was because of the joy that it brought you in your life, because it was fun, right? Like getting with your boys and like going to the sandlot or whatever it was fun. Now, yes, we can make a conversation to have about like all of the people that maybe just played it because they just were good at it and they maybe could get a little bit of money or whatever it was. But I would say for the mass majority of us, we played because of the joy that it brought us. Now, yes, there's things along the path that change in terms of the game of baseball. We have politics, the playing time, money, business, all of the stuff that is involved that changes the game, and it changes the way that we maybe perceive the game of baseball. But I'm here to tell you today, man, like, it's still the game, right? And somewhere along the way in our journeys, we start perceiving it differently. And then therefore, once we perceive it differently, it becomes like this hard job that we have to grind to do rather than it's still the game. I'm telling you, man, like when I was at my darkest of my career, right? So you look at 2013, 2014, when I was struggling so hard mentally, physically, it was draining. I was upset. I wasn't having fun. Man, I was like, I was dreading going to the field. And it took me to get released to really figure out, like, what am I doing, man? Like, I get to play a game, right? Like, I get to get dressed to go to work, and my work is a baseball stadium, like, and it's, again, I know it's super easy to talk about like sunshine and rainbows when the whole world isn't like that. I understand, trust me, I'm the first one that understands that. But the moment in which I was able to sit back and realize that I was very grateful to be healthy, having two legs, having two arms, like, to really look into it and be healthy to play the game, and then B, to be able to have the physical talent and the capabilities to then play the game at a high level. Once I started looking more towards that, and I know it sounds very nerdy and stuff that probably a lot of people don't want to hear in terms of confidence, but once I started perceiving the game like that again, then therefore my joy towards the game of baseball was brought back. And once the game of baseball was joyful again for me, then that's when things started taking care of themselves. It's funny how that works, especially within the game. You try to control so many different things, right? You try to control, essentially for me, what the ball does after it leaves my fingertips. You could try to control your success. You try to control people not getting hits off you. You try to control an outing that's 8 weeks away, or a season that's 2 years away, or whatever it may be. And the second that we start to try to do that, then we unleash more pressure internally on ourselves rather than just the moment. I talked about it in my last podcast about clearing the mechanism, how we are constantly, like, our brains can be in the future, can be in the past, and it could be in the present, right? But we can't be really in all three at once, can't be in all two, like, we have to be in one at once. And I realized, in terms of what allowed me to obtain confidence within myself, was a simple formula that started with, okay, well, what can I control? All right, now I just look at the game of baseball and the art of pitching and look at the simplistic form of all of it and go, all right, well, I can control my work ethic. Okay, we'll check that box every single day. I can control, essentially, a lot of the times I can control how I feel, because I can control how I sleep, how I eat, how I train, how I exercise, how my mind sometimes works. That's a whole different conversation. But all of a sudden I started realizing there's a lot of things that are within our control and that we could do day in and day out to then set ourselves up for success long term. Meaning, I know that I'm going to pitch better if I feel good. And now I know if I feel good, then I'm going to be better equipped to have long-term success. So now it's a simple question of, okay, well, how do I feel good day in and day out? Well, now I got to trial and error with different, things, exercises, mobility, freaking nutrition, meditation. There's so many different things from that standpoint that are within your control. Once you figure that out for yourself, right? Everyone's going to be different in how they input stimulus and all that stuff. So once you figure that out, you can get close to checking a box in terms of preparation, right? So now, again, in terms of simplification, I know that I'm going to perform better when I feel good. And that's not just from the physical standpoint, right? My body, because we know in baseball, like that's not always a guarantee, but also mentally. I need to be put in the state in a state of mind in which I can be mentally feeling good. I can perceive life as joyful and like excited towards each day, right? So again, once you start looking at it like that, then you can start checking off a lot of different boxes. I will say this until I'm freaking blue or pink in the face. Allow your preparation towards your task, which is, if you're a baseball player or if you're a pitcher, it's getting hitters out and winning the game. Hitters, it's getting on base, hitting a home run, whatever the task is, right? Focus on that external task. Okay. Now, whatever that task is, focus on how you prepare to accomplish that task. Okay. Now, allow that preparation towards obtaining and accomplishing that task to then give you your confidence and conviction. I think a lot of times, and this, again, I know it's easy said than done, right? Like I understand how simplistic I'm putting this, but it's not. I completely agree that you sitting in your car there is like mother effing me because I make it sound easy. If it was easy, I wouldn't be in a freaking semi-pro league or whatever league. I don't know what this indie ball league. I get it. Okay. But again, if we can focus on putting our or allowing our confidence to stem from what we put into the preparation aspect and how we train, how we sleep, how we prepare, how we treat others, all of these other things that go into it that are within our control, if we can have confidence grow from that and not have or think about confidence growing from the actual performance, even though we know it's going to, right? We know that it's just a human thing. Instead of looking at it from only performance, look at it from how you prepare for the performance. Therefore, you can easily obtain confidence because you know that you 110% prepared for that performance. Now, again, it goes back to the very simplistic thought process of control what you can control the amount of work that you put into it, smarter, not harder too, right? And then once you get out there, allow that preparation and allow that control the controllables mindset give you confidence towards your performance. Again, that's something that I use. People are going to look at me all the time and ask, like, why do you continue to do it? Like, you're obviously not succeeding. You're not in the big leagues. Maybe someone could argue that you're not even close. And on paper, I really should be a very not confidence individual when it comes to me towing it up on the mound. Now, what gives me confidence? Okay, well, let's look at it from my point. Everything I just said is something that I use towards allowing me to be confident when I tow it up day in and day out. Doesn't matter how I feel. Because I know that I've done the things that needed to be done to prepare myself for that moment. And now if things don't happen in that moment, if things don't happen the way that I want to, that's fine. I understand that that's going to happen. But it's one thing to be in that moment full well knowing that I didn't prepare for that moment. Okay, now I can't handle that. I can't swallow that. That is a no-go for me. That's when I need to freaking hang up the spikes. But if every time that I tow it up and I'm in that moment and I full well know that I've prepared for that moment, then I'm going to be confident in that moment. Now, sure, of course, confidence is also going to stem from seeing glimmers of success, right? Like I will still say to anyone that asks, like there's been moments, essentially every outing, where I've seen greatness, where I've seen things that I can do and things that I'm capable of doing that gives me long-term confidence towards this goal that I'm trying to obtain. I see that. I see it, okay? It could be a different conversation for you if you're never seeing those moments, right? And that's the tricky conversation, and that's the tricky part for me because I can't tell you how to go about that, right? And now, as much as I wish I had all the answers that I don't, I apologize. But again, I think just allowing other things to give you confidence rather than just the performance, right? The in-game performance, I think is huge. But you can do that and then still fight an uphill battle, because there's times where, the performance is going to matter. And I don't say that just to put more freaking pressure on you, because there's enough pressure enough. But I'm saying, like, long-term goals, if you want to play this game at the highest level and, you rake in BP, but come game time, you're 0 for 4 with 4 punchies every single dime, or like you throw great bullpens, but when you get into the game, you're a different breed. Now that's a different conversation, because that kind of puts you into a category of needing to do some other work that will better equip you for the game. That's not really that confidence conversation, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, you listen to this and you got something from it. I think the biggest thing that I would encourage you to really kind of grasp mentally is the simple fact that, why do you play this game? Like, why did you start playing this game? Now, along the way, what changed for you? Because, like, you as a person maybe have slightly changed in how you perceive the world or whatever, but I don't think you change to the point where now all of a sudden this is a different game to you. Now, it may have more on the line and more at stake than it did in Little League, but if you can get to a point in your life where you can get back to having fun playing this game, because, again, as human beings, we gravitate towards what is fun and what brings us joy, because it feels good from like a dopamine standpoint. Now, if we don't have that towards our job or the game of baseball, then it's going to be the grind, and we know that we know the grind is pretty dang tough, right? So find a way to fall back in love with the game, because if I were a betting man, I would guarantee the person or the people that do struggle with confidence are the same people that are perceiving the game of baseball as a have to rather than a get to. Change the mindset first, have fun, even in the moment, be playing the game like it's fun, because I think the more fun that you have, the quicker you can get into that flow state that I talk about, right? Where you're more action than you're thinking, because when things go bad and we start failing and the rails come off, that's when the head comes in and we start getting involved from a thought process and fearing what potentially can happen and how other people will think about us and how I don't like that, and so on and so forth. I'd encourage you to check out the last podcast I did on clearing the mechanism, because there's a lot of similar stuff in that than it is about the mindset. So that is me. Okay, so that is like my 2 cents in terms of this topic and seeking confidence and how to obtain confidence. Putting yourself in a position day in and day out to feel good mentally and physically. For me personally, when it comes to the mentality, like, I do a lot of breathing, I do a lot of meditation, I do a lot of gratitude practice, mindfulness stuff, like things that are being very perceived as nerdy. I'm doing those because I know that in order for me to be my best, not just as a baseball player, but to be my best as a person, right? And to go out and affect positive change in the world today, that I need to have my ish freaking controlled and handled, right? So those are protocols that I set in place. I would encourage anyone that's listening to this to incorporate some of their own protocols that allow them to feel good mentally and physically day in and day out. So then therefore they can be put into a position in which they are perceiving the game of baseball as joyful, and then therefore have a little bit better success with a lot of other components that are maybe hindering their performance in the way that they have a outlook towards the game. So I'd encourage you guys, if you want to dive into this a little bit deeper, you can shoot me an email, contact robbyrow@gmail.com. That's Robbie with a Y. Check out my website. I have a bunch of other content on the mental game of baseball on therobbyrowshow.com. So if you want to dive deeper into this, and maybe there's some things that I can help you out with, if you want to book like a one-on-one consult, be sure to do that. That could be found on my website as well. And that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully that could affect someone. And yeah, All right, guys. I'll try to get a guest on here pretty soon. I'm trying to schedule something now that I have a pretty good understanding of our schedule. We only have maybe a few more weeks left in this season, and then I'll be figuring out what my next move is. I just did my most recent breakdown on my outing. That can be found at therobbyrowshow.com/outing-breakdowns. Be sure to go check those out. I think I have like 10 or 11 breakdowns up. My last one was from the 9-6 relief outing breakdown. I brought back my splitter. And if you want to see that, go ahead and head to that website. Send this. I encourage you to do your part. If you know somebody that does struggle with confidence and conviction and maybe is in a position in their life where they're perceiving this game as, not fun, send this podcast to them. I really do want them to get the most out of this game because I do believe the game of baseball is absolutely freaking beautiful. And yes, it is a job, but it is fun. Guys, I love you. God bless. Let me know if there's anything that I can do to help. And until next time, it's your host, Robby Rowland of the Robby Rowland Show podcast. And my beard is coming back. Comeback of the year. Love you guys. See ya.